Section 5.3, which I kind of skipped over when I did the earlier part of chapter 5, is how you derive inverse derivatives. So what I mean by that is if you're given a function, how would you be able to figure out what its derivative of its inverse function is? I will be honest, it's probably one of the most boring derivative rules out there, but the flip side, the good side is it's also really quick. So it's kind of a nice lesson to do very quickly on your own because I can take you through the different types of problems that exist without a lot of extra work and time consuming parts. So first, inverse notation, just to remind you from like algebra 1, algebra 2, when you're given a function and you're asked about its inverse, the most common notation is to put like a little -1 next to it. It's not an exponent. That is indicating that if f is my original function, then this f with the -1 is considered its inverse. Now, on the AP test, oftentimes because we have so many like superscripts, we have prime symbols and double prime symbols and exponents, often they'll just use words and say, if f is my function, then g is its inverse, and just be very generic that way instead of trying to use a lot of symbols that get kind of confusing. So the formula for how we derive derivatives of inverses looks awful. But I'm gonna break it down into really simple parts. So here's what it is. And you're going to look at this, I'm sure, and be like, what in the world is going on here? So I found that it's been easiest to explain it to students as a 3-step process. So if you're asked about a function and then asked about the inverse of that function, I'm going to take this really messy looking formula and break it down into 3 steps. Step 1, my screen does not want to write for me. So let me try again. There we go. Step 1 is to derive the original function. So I'm just going to call the original function f. So I'm going to say we're going to derive f. They will give it to you as f equals or g equals or y equals. Step 2 is going to be to reciprocate it. What I mean by that is write it as a reciprocal. I did not even spell that right, so let me try that again. So we're going to reciprocate. In other words, we're going to take 1 over that derivative. And then the last step is the one they expect you to miss. When you think about inverses, even thinking back to like basic algebra 1, when you first talked about an inverse, the first thing that you were probably told by a teacher is inverse switches variables. X's and Y's switch. If you have a table of values and you're asked about the inverse of that same table, your entire X column goes into your Y column and vice versa. So you have to use the opposite variable. So the best way I can really explain this 3-step process is to do some. So I'm going to show you this one that's worded like the AP test, and then I'm going to show you ones that are on Delta Math that I feel like are nice ones to look at that kind of ask the same thing. So here's the way that they'll be worded. It'll tell you that f is equal to some function, and then they'll say g is its inverse, again, so it's not using complicated symbols. And it wants to know the value of the derivative at 9. These are always numeric problems, meaning you're going to get a numeric answer. So your first step is to derive that f function. So the derivative of 3x cubed minus x plus 7 is 9x squared minus 1. And then you're going to reciprocate it. So step 1 and step 2 kind of happen back to back. Step 3 is the one that they expect you to miss. You're not actually putting 9 into this derivative. Instead, you're going to treat the 9 like it's a y value and set the original function equal to it. So instead of saying f of x equals, you're going to say when does 9 equals 3x cubed minus x plus 7. So you're going to consider that like a y value. That's what I mean by opposite variable. This is not something you can solve by hand. So here's where a calculator comes in. So what you're going to do on your calculator is you're going to go to your graph. You're going to type in this function, 3x cubed minus x plus 7, and I want to know when it equals 9. So I'm going to make my next line 9, and I'm going to hit graph. Oh, I need to change my window, sorry. I'm not sure the last thing I did. There we go. Just back to a standard window, just zoom 6. So there's my cubic function. Here's 9. So the key is when do they meet? Now you probably can figure out just by counting, but if you can't, you can go to the calculate menu, which is second trace, and go to intersect. Enter, enter, enter. And it will tell you that it intersects at 1, 9. So when x or y is 9, which is what you were given, x is 1. So you are going to put 1 into this derivative form. So your answer ends up being 1 over 9 times 1 squared is just 9 minus 1, and your answer is 1/8. So you derive your original function, you reciprocate your original function, and then instead of using the variable they're given as an x, you think of that variable as actually being a y value and find the given x. So let me show you what they do on Delta Math, because I actually think they do Delta Math a little easier than this. So this is what they're going to give you. There's a couple different types on Delta Math. This video, I'm going to focus on equation-based ones. So they're going to give you a function. First step is to derive that function. So derivative of negative x cubed is negative 3x squared, and then minus 5, and reciprocate. Here's what I really like about this one. They will tell you that you're looking for g prime of negative 8, but they'll actually tell you what the x value is whenever the function equals negative 8. So you don't need a calculator for these. You don't have to graph it and see when does the function actually equal negative 8. They come out and tell you that it happens at 1. So make sure 1 is the number you're plugging in, not negative 8. You end up getting 1 over negative 3 minus 5, which is 1 over negative 8. So on your screen, you're going to type in, I gotta flip my screen here for a second. You're going to type in negative 1/8 and get your answer. And I'm gonna look at how they explain it. I actually think the way they do it kind of similarly. I hope I can kind of streamline it for you. So let me show you another one, and then I think we'll be good. I want to show you again one that's just in an equation. So we're gonna look at one that's an equation. All right. So this is another way to present it. I'm presenting it kind of as a point. So your first step is to derive your original function. So we're going to derive 2x cubed to get 6x squared minus 4x plus 4. We're going to reciprocate it. They're asking for the value of the derivative at negative 8. That is actually a y value, so you want to use the x that goes with it. Again, they actually come out and present it. You don't have to go searching for it. So you're going to put negative 1 into that. So you get 1 over 6 times negative 1 squared is just 6. Minus 4 times negative 1 will be plus 4 plus 4. So we get 1/14. These are all numeric. You're going to type in your number, get your answer. So that is how we work with derivatives of inverses if you're specifically given in an equation format.